watershed, see if we can get some reductions in efficiencies in here, and then move ahead with the properly sized facility. Would be one item.
John, as I understand it, the town has been threatened with lawsuits by the people whose health is affected by that salt and sand flowing into those apartments.
The notifications that we have been given, when you read them, you can read that the rhetoric is starting to grow. I mean, it's not, it'd be nice if you took care of it. I think the last letter that we received was, give us a timeline. And I mean, you can start to see that start to grow. And, when you have a citation from a doctor stating his patient's health is being compromised because of the dust in his apartment, well, what's the source of that dust? It's that sand pile. So, I mean, one of the concerns I think that we have is, if we put it off, are we going to end up in litigation?
But then, maybe in the alternative, then, if we can speak to the folks that know in the DOT to see if we can ascertain what kind of savings could be had. Maybe that could be put into consideration for the size of the shed.
Yeah.
Could you please repeat that?
If we could at least have a conversation with other towns' use of these more efficient procedures, what is their reduction? What reduction have they seen? And could it be applied to our facility to where we could incorporate that idea and that savings into the size of our shed? I mean, if we can save, the repair on the building. If we make a repair on that, I'm not saying it's a great idea, but if we do we have to bring the entire building up to code, or can we just make that specific repair?
You gotta bring it on.
It's my understanding, and not being an engineer, but the people that I talked to, we'd have to bring the building up to code. That your electrical code says. We got a quote from Conrad Sealy, and he said this is just an estimate, and I think it was like $21,000 just for the electrical.
Okay, but do we have an estimate on what it would take to fix the building and bring the entire building up to code? Not that it's a good idea.
The numbers that I've got, just looking at doors, looking at, I didn't go into bringing the entire building up to code. MMA wants us to put in a secondary egress from the building, some kind of door that, in case there's a fire in the front of the building, our employees don't have to run into the fire to escape. That's another additional cost. We start looking at ventilation. That's another additional cost. Robert?
Didn't you have a conversation with Bowman Contractors about bringing that building up to code? And they gave you a price of over $300,000?
At the previous town meeting, Bowman Contractors, the selected contractor for the project, was there. And prior to the meeting, Kevin Bowman and Dale Rafford and I went down, and they wanted to take a look at the town garage. Getting out of the truck, Dale told me $350,000, not looking inside. When he picked his head inside, he said $556,000, $600,000. You're going to have nothing but an old building. He said the first thing I do is get an excavator.
One last question. In this, the email from Don Avery to you that talked about some costs for the new facility. It talked about a meta building that didn't have any doors or insulation in the windows. It talked about a cost of about $138,000. Is that a comparable estimate to the estimate for the building? This is fairly new. It looks.
Can I see that, please?
Yeah. I just compared that to the numbers that are in the estimates, and they're kind of way off. I just wondered, what is that relevant then?
Okay. Basically, what he's talking about was, we had several different things that we were looking at. One was the question is, what if we change the size of the building? What if we look at other buildings? A lot of times, when you get a quote for a building, you've got cost here of a building, material and freight, $76,000. and this is basically a 4 walls and a roof building. Now you have basic conditions, labor, tools, equipment for erection, $62,000. So you get about $138,000. You've got 4 walls and a roof, no heating system, no electrical, no ADA bathroom, no floor, no cement, no nothing. The numbers that Sewell gave us, like I think we're right around 130,000 just for the building. So these numbers are consistent with what we have to work with. Everything else is the addition, you know, your regulations. I believe I was talking to Peter about lights. We were going to shut down a bunch of lights. He come back, you know, there's regulations on the amount of lighting you got to have in a building. When the engineers first came in with a price tag, we're like, oh my God, we can tear this apart. And, you know, whether or not it's the bathroom or the electrical, the heating system, you know, it's state statutes that bring the cost up.
Thank you. What is your anticipated timeline to get this to a town meeting vote? Are we looking at June or July or August? What's your best guess?
Ideally, my goal, and I've shared it with the committee, was I wanted to have be ready to go for town meeting by the end of June. But when we looked at the slides, there's still a number of steps that we got to undertake, and each one of these steps is an important one. Do I think we can do it? Maybe. Do I think we should lap it into the annual town meeting? I think last year we were here till 11:30, and the town meeting for the Public Works Garage, I believe, lasted almost 2 hours. So I don't think anybody here wants to be here till 1:30. I'd like to be able to do it in June. You know, would I put that data on the calendar? No. I mean, we still got too much work ahead of us.
Okay, just one last question. If it was approved in June, when do you think it would be operational? The facility, the new facility, how long is it going to take to construct? Any timeline?
Yeah, I mean, you could do this in a matter of 3-4 months. Everything flipped.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One comment about the, should we look at new methods of practice and then thus downsize the building? One thing you could do is you could move forward with whatever size, you know, I can't remember what the size you were thinking about, John, 3,000 yards. Even if you built one a little less than that, the price, the total cost is not going to change that much. But you could also store, you know, maybe some plows in there, you know, just the plows themselves. If you've got into a liquid system, the tank usually should go inside and not outside in the UV. So you could put, you have some, if this was oversized building, you could use it for other purposes, to store some stuff. But you gotta remember that it's salt, and you may not want to choose to put a lot of metal stuff in this building if it's not well ventilated.
You know, one of the other things too is, you know, I'm excited by using the new technology and saving money. I think everybody is. But as somebody that's grown up and lived in Maine all my life, I also know that you've got certain times, whether you know you have an ice storm or extremely cold temperatures, you know, I think you've got times when you need the grit of sand. You need something under your tires that's going to keep you from going off into the ditch. So if we build this facility and we employ some of the new technology, I think we should have adequate space for both the sand and the salt.
You're gonna have to have both anyway. You got 10 miles of dirt roads.
Peter just stated on the dirt roads, the salt's not going to be effective. So I mean, you know, we're still going to need a facility that's going to be big enough for both.
Rick, how do you take care of your gravel roads?
Sand.
Sand and plow, right?
Yeah. When you can plow.
The salt pile issue, since it's only gonna take a month to build a facility, I mean, we all know that the salt sand is blowing and whatever, that it's a potential hazard. But we don't have emergency timeline. We have some letters from doctors, I understand. I mean, there's, there'd have to be a whole research study to prove that. People, I think, want to move forward with moving the salt pile, but I don't want us to be alarmed that it has to be moved tomorrow. That's my opinion. The insurance company, have we asked the insurer what it would take to extend that 6-month timeline that they gave us as far as not being able to insure that building? In other words, I had a customer here and the insurance company wanted the roof done. It was the end of November. These people live in Florida. I'm like, you cannot get your roof done now. Well, the insurance company said we have to. I'm like, well, that's just going to be a waste of money. So she wrote to the insurance company, arranged for June or May, and the roof was done then. So the insurance company responded, and I'm wondering if we've asked them a what-if scenario. If we had a building in place in a year, for instance, would they continue to cover the old building if the town voted within 6 months to build a new building?
I think the issues that they're citing, one of the items that they gave me was the possibility of raising our workers' comp if the people continue to work inside that building. Have we asked them about extending it? Not at this point. What I would like to do when I go to the insurance company is I would like to show them a timeline of public hearings, grant applications, communications with the community, and inform them of all the steps that we're taking to alleviate the problem. And then, with that behind me, it's not what we're gonna do, it's what we have done. And then take that to the insurance company.
And just one more thing, well, 2 more things. How many bays does the current proposal have for equipment?
The current proposal is a little bit different. It doesn't rely on bays. The building itself is going to have a door on each end. They're going to be able to drive in. Basically, the goal is we want to put the equipment inside, store it safely, control access to it. But basically, what it's going to be is it's going to be 2 bay doors, one on each side of the building. It's comparison to the model that I believe Sheldon Stanley uses. The big, long building, with doors on both ends.
So you're still planning on having the equipment all stored inside?
What we're looking at, the 60 by 80 facility would allow, 3 trucks, the backhoes, and the pickup, in addition to the summer working equipment, the chipper, and give the boys a work area. I know this winter they were working on a plow. They could not put the truck inside, so I'm watching Robert Baker drop up a wing because the plow was too cold to work. I think the whole goal is to have a facility that you can put a truck in, drop a plow, do what needs to be done, and then move it out.
But they wouldn't necessarily be working on more than 2 pieces of equipment at a time. We only have 3 people working, so.
Right.
The last thing, just to remind us all that, yes, we've spent money on the engineering study. We voted on that. We've gone forward. People have been working really hard on this issue. But there's never a time when you shouldn't stop. Just because you've been going forward. That's what happened to the O-rings on the shuttle, if you remember. People knew there were issues, and no one stopped. This is not the shuttle. But I just wanted to respond to that as a citizen, that I don't think it's the end of the road. And I think enough questions and input has been delivered at these public hearings that maybe it's time to just do further analysis on the issue before we before we continue to go forward.
One thing I heard tonight was that, okay, we're gonna enrich risk management on workers' comp. What, I mean, how much are they gonna get you for a couple of months? If we could save $150,000 or $200,000 somehow, it probably would be well worth the investment.
Workers' comp can do a great deal.
Well, I don't believe that they're gonna get you that bad, as long as you're doing something. They're not gonna have. And it just, you know, that equipment does have to go inside to be worked on. No question there. The plan that you have on the website is not the plan that you currently, for the municipal, for the building itself, right? The floor plan that you have on the town website
Yeah,
is different than what you just discussed.
I believe it should be the same. I mean, the trucks. Yeah. You know, basically the plan that's on the website does have the open doors on each end.
In the middle,
Yes.
and then it shows a plow truck and something, and the mechanical room on the left. Plow truck to pick up a mechanical room on one side, 2 heavy trucks in the middle, 2 backhoes and an office and toilet. Well, the mechanical room's behind the toilet, and there's a work area on one side.
Okay, that floor plan was drawn up by Sewell. When they come in and they give us the dimensions, one of the questions from the committee was, how did you come up with those dimensions? And that was the floor plan that they provided, is one that would be adequate to house the equipment, still give the crew room to work, still have room for a bathroom and an office area.
Yeah. That's nice on paper. At 1 o'clock in the morning when it's plowing. I can't see that happen. I see, you know, we had 2 trucks on the road, and one broke down and they needed to get the 3rd truck out that's not in front of the doors. That could be very challenging, especially if the plow on and the wind. This doesn't even fit the wind, but aside from that, the other question that I had was, you brought up a wood boiler, again, pellet furnace to this building.
Yes.
Are the firefighters enthusiastic about that? I just can't believe that they turned down every sort of wood boiler going, and that to me is a wood boiler. And this is forced by there anyway now, right?
No. What we're looking at in the design by Pelletco, this is one of the items that the committee has changed. On the earlier design, the boiler itself was going to be inside. The silo pellet storage area was going to be outside. Under the Pelletco proposal, everything would be in a container outside the building. Then the heat generated would go through the walls. It would be a hot air system with overhead Modine heaters to blow the hot air down. And that was something that was added as a cost savings. Initially, too, it was also going to have the radiant floor heating, but then when we look at the cost of that, how it affected the cost of the project, the committee decided to take that out as well.
And did they look over the long-term investment of, you know, the efficiency of it?
Well, there was a number of issues there. I mean, you know, that was a conversation that went back and forth quite a bit. Initially, when it went in, the goal was the long-term savings. But bottom line is that if you've got a building that, you know, we can't afford to build, we gotta find some savings somewheres. So then that's when the decision was made to take that out.
That's why I was hoping we could save on this salt shed and maybe put it over the other. This, first of all, this garage, anybody that's worked in a garage, and I spent too many hours on a paper, knows what it's like even with the big mow knives. The radiant heat is much better. It's better on the trucks, it's better on the employees, because they don't wind up with colds and sickness. It keeps the floor dry. You know,
It's the best long-term investment there is.
right. And the other thing is, when the heat goes out, if the floor was properly done, frost walls were properly done, a building like that, or even Sheldon's down there, would probably stand 4 or 5 days with no heat, and that mass will hold that heat. Getting it started is the big issue. Once it's started, it's great. But I think, you know, a lot of this needs to be looked at a little closer. It seems like we're jumping from one thing to the other. You know, we're gonna save a dime here, or we're gonna save $1 here. But over 10 years, that's what could cost us $1,000 almost. So, you know, I'd sort of like to see you people, speaking for myself, go back to the